Hi, so here I am again to have another word with my confirmation class. So in the last video I talked about God the Father. I did a little bit of explanation about how we can think of God the Son and God the Father as being co-equal, as being equal aspects of one eternal God. And this video I want to talk a bit more about Jesus and Jesus as this aspect of God in the world. So we believe in God the Father as the origin point of all being, that God has created this wonderful world, but this world, as wonderful as it is, well, there are difficulties. Life isn't always easy. Life isn't just perfect. Now, would it be good to live in a perfect world? Well, if the world was perfect, it would be very difficult to have growth or movement or change. Maybe you can have movement with perfection, but you can't really have growth and change. If this was a perfect world, maybe we'd all just love one another and love God. But if that was the way things were, would that love be real if it wasn't something that we had chosen? So we think of the world as we know it as being maybe not perfect, but it has the wonderful gift in it of choice. There is the possibility of mighty and wonderful things. But with that, there is the possibility also for things to go wrong and for terrible things to happen. And on balance, I believe it's better to live in a world of possibility. The other side of this is that the love that we can have for God is our choice. We choose to love God who has loved us. And that's one of the things that the Christian life is about, is being grateful for the life we have and for loving the God who has given us life. Now, into this world, which, because we have the choice to do good things or bad things, and many people choose bad things, this world is therefore a little bit broken. Broken by human sin and broken by the bad things that have happened. So God comes into this world to try and show us how we can be not so broken, to heal the brokenness that we've already inflicted on the world. And God chooses to come into the world to perform this healing, not by arriving in great clouds of glory with trumpets, but to come into this world as a human being. To come into this world and exist inside this world that God has created, to exist in it as a person, just like you or me, to show us the way through living a life just as we live a life. So the God we believe in, whilst that God is beyond our ability to imagine, that God has come down to exist in the world through our level. There's a couple of big words coming up. So, God is transcendent in that God is beyond what we can imagine. But God in Jesus is also immanent, comes down to be with us at our level. And because God has existed as a human being, God can understand us and our lives. And we can feel that God is with us, because God is not just distant and beyond us and transcendent, but God is also with us and immanent. And in fact, Emmanuel, God is with us. That's something you might hear around Christmas time. So, the Christ, the Saviour, the aspect of God that reaches out, came and reached out through being alive in the person Jesus. So Jesus was at once entirely God and entirely human. God being and existing through a human mind to live a human life and to show us the way that we can live a life with healing and grace and being in tune as part of that life. And really existing and being himself, even to the point where some people decided to kill him. And going through that process of dying and taking on board in that death all of the brokenness of human sin, all of the brokenness of humanity, all of the brokenness of that world that God had created. And through dying and rising again on Easter Sunday, starting that process of healing. In many ways, some people talk about Jesus taking our sin on himself when he went to the cross. And in many ways, like people like to talk about that in judicial terms. Jesus doing the time for our crimes. But you can think about it also in more a medical term. That the crucifixion of Jesus was a point of healing. That Jesus is the vaccine for the brokenness of sin. Maybe that's a very current idea. But it's there in the Gospels, particularly in an understanding of the Gospels that you find in the Eastern Church, and particularly in Luke's Gospel, Luke the great physician. Have this idea that Jesus is there to heal the world, and does it through his life, but also through his death and through his rising again, to show that whatever brokenness you throw at God, you can't break God. And God will give some of that resilience to us. And that's the job of the church. To go into the world and help the world to receive the healing that is given to us in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. God being human to heal a world in many ways broken by humans, but put back together again by God as a human.